Okay, I have started recording. So it's 2:34. I'll call the meeting to order. This is the inaugural meeting of the board post last week's AGM. And what I require is a motion to appoint me as the pro tem temporary, very temporary corporate administration officer for the purposes of temporarily chairing the meeting.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. A second item, appointment of a board chair. And there's any number of ways to do it. Usually,
I nominate Ian Monroe.
Second that.
there's a seconder that Ian be appointed as chair or nominated. Is there any further nominations? Okay, I will take it then as a motion on the table that Ian Monroe be appointed as chair of the board.
Second.
Thank you.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. So, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman,
Ian.
I'll turn the meeting back over to you. And I do have two quick late items, which I would request be added to the agenda.
Well, then how about we do that before we approve the agenda?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the first late item, I just want to give the board, after we've confirmed the select committees and the meeting schedule, I'd just like to give the board a very brief update on the water treatment plant office, modular office washroom building. And the second item is just to let the board know that Keith from Public Works, tomorrow it will be his 20th anniversary of starting work with the Union Bay Improvement District. Janice and Dan and Sonia, I believe, are going to have a little cake ceremony for him at the water treatment plant. I think tomorrow afternoon around lunchtime. And I'm just letting the board know, and perhaps just a motion of congratulations may be in order.
Okay, so any other late additions to the agenda? All right, so then motion to approve the agenda with the suggested additions from Gary.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So the second item on the agenda then is adoption of the minutes from the April 29th, 2021 annual general meeting be as approved as circulated.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of that, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Third item on the agenda then is confirmation of select committees and other appointments. And then there's three sub-bullets under sub-agenda items under this. The first is select committee for the procurement of new fire apparatus. The previous chair of this committee was Ted Haraldson. Ted is no longer on the board. So I guess, the question is, does the committee still stand? And if so, who is the chair? And perhaps maybe, Gary, we could ask you a question to say, can you give us an update on the status of the work being done by that committee and whether a committee is still required to get us through to the end of June?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the committee is still in effect, and they've had, since I've been brought on board, I think 2 or 3 meetings. It is anticipated that they will likely, or I would hope, or I would recommend to the fire chief that they have at least one further meeting before conversion. because, their primary task is to, before conversion, come up with specifications, both mandatory and desired, for a new piece of apparatus that basically take it to that stage up to the conversion date. So I would suggest that there be a replacement for former trustee Haraldson, because I do anticipate this committee will at least have one more meeting before conversion.
Okay. So I guess, do we need a motion to continue the committee, or does the committee continue to stand?
No, I think the committee would continue to stand. It should just be, appointing a new chair.
Okay. So I guess the process then would be to ask for nominations for a chair for the select committee for the procurement of new fire apparatus.
Or a simple motion to designate entertain a motion.
Yeah. If there's only one, we'll turn it into a motion, right?
Right.
So
I nominate Eve.
No.
Well,
Okay.
I have commitments in Vancouver as a caregiver for my mom, so I'm sorry, I can't. Yeah,
I understand that for sure. Eve, you said no. I'm reluctant to, if you're not the choice, then I am. I'm reluctant to take more on, but
Yeah. So basically, it's me or nothing, because
Well,
you're
no, it's
already
me
the
or you.
chair,
I think, Susanna, how often are you over in Vancouver?
at least every month for a week to 10 days. Like, I'm pretty much half time in Vancouver.
So these meetings, they happen in person, these fire select committees?
I think one has happened in person, but I think the last one or two have been by Zoom,
Oh, okay.
which would
Susanna,
will
Yeah.
likely be the venue for any further meeting by Zoom.
Right.
Susanna, if it was Zoom, would that change things?
Well, yeah, I definitely wouldn't be possible if it wasn't by Zoom. If it is only really going to be one more meeting, but I cannot commit to more than that, really. Like, clearly, the work won't be done in one more meeting for the procurement of the new equipment, or will it?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I can certainly indicate to the chief that this committee, will continue, and that basically could we kind of wrap it up with one more virtual meeting. I think that's achievable, because they have made quite a bit of progress actually in terms of coming up with specifications. So I could certainly communicate that to the chief and say, look, one more meeting and by Zoom if possible.
Is it going to carry on after conversion? Because there is going to be a committee, is there not? The working group is going to carry on or something like that? Will they
The working group does continue, but I don't know what the answer would be for what CVRD would do with
The fire.
any committee of Union Bay Improvement District, right?
Mhm.
But my understanding too is that the mandate of this committee is now to create specifications for a new fire apparatus, and that they are not conducting the purchasing process, that will be done by CVRD after conversion. Is that correct, Carrie?
Correct. I mean, I think the objective in the chief's mind anyway, and in my mind, would be ideally, by June 30th, the committee is basically, the UBID select committee has wrapped it up, because there'd be no authority to continue it on, and basically, present to the CVRD, okay, here's our recommended specifications for a new apparatus.
Okay. Okay, I will stand. If no one else wants it.
So then motion to appoint trustee Susanna Calger as chair of the select committee for the procurement of new fire apparatus.
Oh.
I'll just say motions on the floor. So second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Susanna abstains. Susanna gets railroaded.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second item is the select committee for the water treatment plant funding, currently chaired by trustee Goodrow. I don't know if there's anything else we really need to do here, right? Like, you know, I guess, can we just confirm that as a board that trustee Goodrow continues as the chair of the water treatment plant funding select committee?
I didn't even know I was the chair of the water.
Yeah, we elect, yes, we had a process, you were nominated, yeah, you are the chair.
That's the one that had Mary and Carol on it.
Oh, I thought that was just called the select committee. I didn't know it was a water, you're talking about that committee, sorry. Okay.
Yes,
Gotcha,
that's the one.
okay.
So Gary, do we need a motion here just to confirm trustee Goodrow
I
as
think
chair of that
think,
committee?
yes, we should just confirm the continuation of that committee.
Okay, so I will make a motion to continue with the select committee for the water treatment plant funding review with trustee Yves Goodrow as chair.
Second,
All in favor of said motion, say aye.
aye.
Another abstainer. Okay, third item on this is, we've discussed this before, but never really brought it forward as business, is with respect to the working committee. And in the working committee, our current representation on that is from our administration, Gary, and from the board, myself and Susanna. And then we have Carol Molstad from the public sitting on that working advisory committee as well. I guess we're calling it the conversion steering committee. It's been raised as a suggestion that we seek further public involvement on that board or on that committee. The proposal is that that committee would continue for 3 months beyond conversion, and the purpose would be to provide guidance as conversion continues to settle in. And I was the one that brought the idea to the working committee on the basis that, you know, we have trustees and a member of the public on that board, but we don't have any representation from the approximately, you know, 1/4 to 1/3 of our population that voted against conversion. And it was my suggestion to the committee that we appoint someone from that subset of our population in the spirit of inclusion and moving the community forward. So that's the purpose of this discussion, is to say, I would like to propose that we appoint someone with specific interest in someone who opposed conversion to sit on the working committee to ensure that component of our population feels they have a voice. So that's the motion. And if I could just have a seconder so it's an official motion, and then we can discuss it.
So let me just understand, what you are making a motion that we appoint another member of the public onto this working or this advisory committee that's going to stand for 3 months, like July, August, and September?
Yes.
And we're just gonna pick somebody, and it has to be somebody that's opposed to conversion. That's what the motion is?
My motion is that we appoint someone who.
Okay, I'm not going to second that motion because
I'm not either.
I don't feel that that's valid. I'm not. I don't understand why we would do that. Anyway.
No, I'm sorry. I won't second it either. I'm sorry.
So Susanna, you have in the past said that we can continue with discussions of motions that haven't been seconded. Are you still of that opinion?
Sure. Sure, but I'm quite blunt as to why I oppose it. So we want to
That's
open
fine.
it up.
But let's not go into discussion yet. Let's
I find this
first,
really disruptive. These people like Arthur, I'm not comfortable with.
I don't know who these people are,
They're
but kick them
definitely
out, just
crashers.
boot them right away.
I hear them. Get rid of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. And I would boot out Max too. I don't have any idea who Max is.
I'm new here. I saw this on the website.
They're definitely.
Where do you live, Max?
Oh,
That was weird.
Okay, given this, I think, anybody else appears, just let's kick them out right away. This can't be a public meeting with that sort of thing going on. It's we have to do that even to protect any member of the public that might show up. So my only point of discussion here would be to say, what is it that we do? For what reason would we not want to be conciliatory and try to heal this community or to be inclusive within this community? Conversion has happened. Conversion will happen. It has been voted for. There is nothing that will change there. What we will do is get the opinions of other people that are important. There is 28% of this population that voted against conversion, and they need to be heard. So that's my motion and that's my opinion. Now I would turn it over to Eve and to Susanna for their comments, and then we can vote on it, right? Like,
every time we save a penny in our taxpayers' landowner funding because we've received a grant, for example, it benefits every single landowner's pocket. Catering to a particular subsection of our population that happened to vote no, and God knows why, because there really wasn't any factual basis for it. It serves, to me, that just continues giving focus to rhetoric that was false, that was unproductive to democratic process. So there is every opportunity for people who disagree to speak up, as was indicated. Eve, you were not at the committee meetings. However, Director Arbor indicated that those small voices who opposed conversion have regular contact with Daniel Arbor, and one of them actually sits on a committee already. So I don't think that their voice is in any way shut out. I think they have a direct pipeline to the directors, to all persons that they need to. There was plenty of opportunity. For example, the name Rick Bitton was raised. Rick could have stood and continued as a trustee. He chose not to. He had opportunities to continue, and he chose not to. So adding a person who is in opposition, first of all, that's hugely presumptuous. You even get into difficulties. Who's any one of us to say, well, this person is to me, that's not the makeup of a committee, to select them based on opposition or pro. I'm here to represent every single landowner, period. I always have been. And my job, as I took an oath, to operate in their best interest as a collective, all of them. So if we feel Union Bay is underrepresented on that committee. I don't personally think so. Then add one more person, but it should not be a person from, it should be the best candidate, or you know, there should be some other criteria besides their opposition to joining the CVRD.
Thank you. Eve?
So when you say appoint somebody, do you have somebody in mind, or do you advertising for people who are opposed to conversion to be on this committee, or how would you get this person? I'm not clear.
That would be a point of discussion. If we chose to go down this path, we would then say, how would we do it? But I think that the right discussion first is, are we going to go down this path?
Well,
there's certainly options that would be appointing or soliciting statements of interest, those kinds of things, right? But let's just decide, do we want to do this first?
Well, so there's going to be you and Susanna and Carol will all be on the board, and then are there other members of the public or anything?
Gary,
and then the CVRD makes up the rest of it, right?
correct. And that's Dan and James. Catherine Lee from the ministry is on it.
It's pretty much even,
I
Stephen.
guess Jake Martins is on it, right?
Yes.
It's
Okay.
10 from Union Bay and 10 from CVRD. Well, maybe 5 and 4 because of Catherine being the oddball.
Well, I mean, that's a lot of people, and
It
from my
is.
understanding, this committee is really, it's not a working group, it's an advisory committee. So
Exactly.
it's really a formality, from what I hear anyway. So, and you know, I share some of the feelings that Susanna related about I don't want to be rude, I don't want to be mean, but you know, I appointing somebody on the basis of their opposition is doesn't seem like it will heal anything. And because I know how the opposition worked, they don't have any integrity in my mind at all. So, and they've done a lot of bad things. And I don't think that should be rewarded in any way, shape, or form. If you really needed another person, I would just advertise in the public. You want to be on the board, and then then you pick, just like they advertise for committees on the CVRD, and they vet them, and then they pick if you really need somebody. But I don't think that's necessary. So I'm opposed.
Okay. Thank you. I will have last say and then we'll vote. I strongly disagree that I have seen any behavior in my time on this board that suggested that any trustee or any opposition member that was a part of anything I was a part of had anything other than the best interest of Union Bay in mind. They just happen to have a different opinion as to what the best path forward is. And, you know, I had the pleasure, and I use that word, of sitting on the board with Rick Bitton. I admired his passion and his commitment to Union Bay. And I would say the same thing about Ted Haraldson, as my experience was that Ted did the right thing when asked to do it, in my experience. Now, I haven't been on the board since 2019. It is my personal sort of approach to life is to bring people together, not push people apart. And I feel an opportunity here to bring people together, and hence why I made this motion. So that's all I'll say. You know, I don't think we have bad people in Union Bay. I think we have people who have agendas different than just people have different agendas. And sometimes it's worth representing those agendas to know the best way of moving forward. So I've had my say.
May I add something?
You may.
And sometimes people in power behave badly. And I was subject to harassment, verbal abuse from three trustees that were sitting trustees both publicly and in writing, as were countless other trustees, former trustees, and landowners. There is a police report against both Rick Bitton and Ted Harrelson filed on their behavior as trustees in public meetings. So I'm glad your experience is different, Ian. It is much more than a matter of a difference of opinion. There was conduct that was unacceptable and wrong.
I'm not going to argue because I wasn't there.
Mhm.
That said, I'm saddened by everything that has happened in the past. I am saddened by this community being so fractured, and I am saddened by a missed opportunity to move towards each other as opposed to continue to push apart. And so let's just take this to a vote and let it go where it needs to go.
If there's no seconder to the motion, Mr. Chairman, I don't believe you need a vote.
Well, this goes back before your time, and
Okay.
Robert's Rules of Order actually allows for no seconder in small boards.
Mhm.
Stand to be corrected.
And therefore, this has been put forward, and I asked it to be put forward without a seconder. And therefore, we have debated it, and I would like to vote on it. I think it's, you know, it's obvious how it's going to come down, but it needs to be closed off formally. All right, so the motion is to add an additional landowner to the CBRD UBID Conversion Advisory Committee, with particular interest in adding someone from who opposed conversion. So that is the motion. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed to that motion, say nay.
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 Okay, vote motion is defeated, and we will move on. I guess last item on the prepared agenda is the UBID Board of Trustees meeting schedule for the remainder of, well, for the next 2 months until conversion, which would have us have a board meeting on May 20th at 2:30 in the afternoon, a committee of the whole meeting on June 3rd at 2:30 in the afternoon, and a regular board meeting on Thursday, June 17th at 2:30 p.m., all meetings via Zoom. So I guess what we're really saying is, do we approve the schedule for publication to landowners?
Looks good.
Fine with me.
Okay, so I guess motion to approve the schedule. Second,
Second.
all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. So now we're over to our added on agenda items. Gary, which I guess we tackle the status of the office/washroom procurement process.
Correct, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I just want to give the board a very brief update. 2 things. I am ready to press send on the request for quotations for the modular office/washroom/lunchroom facility. CVRD has, they provided some input from their occupational health and safety, from their procurement branch. They've suggested some vendors. I'm all ready to go and press send, and we're going to send it to about 12 vendors. So it's an expanded list. 3 or 4 of them, Dan McGill did previously solicit quotes in the 4th quarter of last year, but it's the RFQ is under the CVRD's format, and basically we're going to try to get apples and apples comparison at the end of the day, you know, all costs in, you know, basically the supply, the delivery, the installation, any additional foundation costs or building permit costs or anything like that. We've specifically requested that they all, provide quotes with all of those costs in. So unless instructed otherwise, I will proceed with that right after this meeting and send that RFQ. It closes, you usually like to give people about 3 weeks. So it's going to close 3 weeks today, and we'll see what we get. So that's ready to go. The second item is, and it's all related to this project, as you know, we're going to need to put septic in place. Right now, the RV there, there's TELUS, there's electricity, and there is water. Dan McGill has solicited a sole source quote from RK Services to install the septic, an appropriately sized septic field close to the proposed site, which would basically be where that trailer is now. It's a sole source quote. It's in the range of $11,000 to $12,000. Dan is RK Services. The quote was solicited on the basis of their qualifications and their experience. They've done a lot of this work. They have the materials, they have the supplies. So unless instructed otherwise, again, and I have no reason to believe that this is not legitimate, they're a legitimate supplier. Dan has spoken highly of them, and he's very convinced that that cost, it would not come in any lower if we to solicit multiple quotations, which we could do. But I just want to bring this to the board's attention at this point in time that unless instructed otherwise, we'll proceed with the RFQ, we'll proceed with the septic, and with a report to be brought back in 3 weeks' time. In terms of the installation of the septic, if we proceed, if I'm given authorization to proceed, then the RK Services could either do it, well, potentially before or at the time that the modular is actually delivered and hooked into all of the other services. And Dan estimates it would take no more than a day to install the septic. So just an update to the board. We're ready to go with both of those components. I don't really need a motion unless you have some concerns.
Would we not need a motion to appropriate capital funding for the septic?
Yes, we do. And that issue is going to be raised in Mr. Clemens' report. By the way, on that report with the funding issue for the water treatment plant, he's going to be sending me the draft report on Monday. I'll be reviewing it. I'll get comments from the auditor and from Janice and maybe from the CVRD. And then, of course, I will take it to the select committee in a draft form to solicit their input and comments. The reason I raise that is because I have told Brian in his report to make reference to this particular project, this accessory project to the water treatment plant, because of course, all that will do in the short term is it would exacerbate the reserve shortfall, right? So basically we would fund it internally, similar to what we did with the $1.1 million until the larger issue is kind of worked on in terms of where do we go from here on that larger reserve shortfall. So I don't believe I need a motion, but I'm certainly happy to entertain one. This is really
I have a quick question. Why isn't the sewage being put out to tender? $12,000 is a significant amount. I kind of would like to know, when do we make the call that it's like, whoop, no tenders, now it's a tender?
Well, that's a very good question. And I mean, I'm not aware of, and I've asked Janice this, I'm not aware that UBID has had a purchasing policy in place per se. And what a purchasing policy usually entails is that, look, for purchases up to a certain amount, you can sole source on the basis of a virtually a verbal quote. And then if you go a little higher between this amount and this amount, you have to get 3 written quotations. Over this amount, you need to do a formal request for quotations. And then the highest amount, over the highest amount, you need to do a formal request for proposals. I'm
So
not
just
aware that we've had a purchasing policy in place to guide that. I'm told that, in the past, we have done sole sourcing, but certainly if you wish Dan to get a couple of other quotes, that's certainly doable. Because I don't think it's particularly time sensitive. It's clearly the modular would not be delivered until at least the end of May, and I'm advised that the work could be done at the same time that the modular is actually installed. So if you want me to get him to solicit 2 other quotations, he can certainly do that.
Because it's over 10 grand, I feel like we should be doing things. I think we need to look like we've done an open and transparent process.
Fair enough.
And the maybe the same guy that comes back, but at least to the public, like we've not been following. Just because we haven't been doing it doesn't mean for the remaining days. I was very glad at the AGM to have a responsible sounding AGM where things were actually followed through on, and I'd kind of like to continue that.
Fair enough, Mr. Chairman. I can certainly do that. And
I don't know if that's unreasonable. 10 grand does to me seem like more than like.
I'm just trying to look up what it is in BC. It's not, I don't know if it's going to come to me right away. My recollection of both BC and Alberta, when I was doing a fair amount of business in those provinces, was that I believe their limit was $50,000 or $100,000 for a province, right? And certainly that's a bigger entity, and $10,000 or $11,000 is less significant to the province than it is to UBID. But I do also, like my personal experience around septic systems. I had one installed 3 years ago. Certainly it was for a larger, my house is bigger than this office, right? But that said, the only thing that really changes there is the size of the field. And that's not the big cost of it. You have to, it's the surveying and the engineering design and the tanks and the control systems that are the major costs of this. And what Dan has got as a quotation is, I'll just say what mine was. It was $18,500. So
I'm not quibbling with
this is quite a bit below that. And what I wonder about is the amount of work we caused Dan, and will we have substantial savings? Like let's say it was $10,500 instead of $11,000. How much work did we put Dan through to get us there, and Gary to get us there, right? So I hear what you're saying. You're right in terms of being. I think you're right in theory here, but if we apply sort of practicality to the situation of, it already sounds like a good price, and we're in the midst of conversion and a lot of additional activities. Do we want to load the staff with more work?
Can I question? So
yes, absolutely.
The 11,000, you said the septic field, does it include all of the things that Ian just mentioned, the expensive parts, or is it just the field? The tanks, the operating apparatus, the engineering thing, the design, is all of that for 11,000? Because I thought 11,000 sounded really low myself.
Yeah,
my understanding, it includes, the whole kit and caboodle. He's got the PVC, and he's ready to go. My understanding, it's basically all inclusive.
An operating septic system for $11,000. Sounds good to me. I kind of agree. that it's not worth going through the thingy process to save $500 even, or even $1,000. I'm not sure, but you know, I thought 11 sounded pretty darn good.
Well, Mr. Chairman, this is precisely why I wanted to bring it. You know, Dan requested authorization to proceed, and I said, well, let's just hold on now. I think I'd want to brief the board before we pull the trigger on both of these components. But again, it's up to the board. I've been given assurance by Mr. McGill that, you know, this is a pretty reasonable price, and he's satisfied that, you know, in this instance, basically the job will be done appropriately and professionally.
Yeah, I'm ready. It's fine. Let's move on. Let's pass it.
I'm happy to proceed as well. However, I do believe that we need to appropriate reserves. This is not like I think, well, what was our materiality amount in the audit? Was it 30? I'm trying to think, $35,000 or $40,000, wasn't it?
I'm just giving you the heads up.
I think we do need to appropriate capital, Gary, or reserves, do we not?
Well, yeah, I mean, basically with the RFQ, with the septic, let's just put that aside for the minute. With the request for quotations, the process would be that once they close on the 27th of the month, I would come back with a report saying, look, we had X number of submissions and recommend we go with the low bidder, and here's what the source of funds would be. Because the RFQ basically is worded such that this does not obligate the UBID to make an award. It would all be subject to funding. So that's what I would do on the main project, is come back at that point in time with a low bid and a recommended source of funding. With the septic, you know, in my world, again, it would usually, something like this would just be funded at least on a short-term basis out of contingency or accumulated surplus.
Okay. So you're comfortable not appropriating capital at this time. You want to roll it into a bigger plan.
Yeah, I would think so. What I would be doing is at the meeting, after you come back and you make an award and you have a report saying, look, here's the contractor for the main project. Oh, by the way, it also, it excludes septic. So we've got to add that amount. So what's the source of funding for that total global amount?
Okay. All right. So we don't need a motion or anything, it sounds like, right? It just do.
Yeah, I think given the discussion, perhaps we should, because, you know, you've raised good points about the, you know, possibly going for additional quotations. And this is why I wanted to bring it back. I didn't want to be holding up the project, but I wanted you to be aware that unless instructed otherwise, we were going to proceed. But I think a motion probably would be good on the record.
Oh, okay, so motion to authorize the administration and the public works staff to proceed with sole sourcing a septic system for the water treatment plant office facility as described during this meeting.
Second. So moved. So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, and then last item on the agenda would be the Keith McKay's 20th anniversary. I might suggest that we put because of things that happened in this meeting, that we put yet another agenda item on to discuss altering the video to remove the offensive content, and we should do that transparently.
Ugh. Yeah.
Okay, so Gary, where are you on the anniversary?
Well, Mr. Chairman, tomorrow Keith McKay from Public Works will be celebrating his 20th anniversary of starting work with UBID, and Janice and I believe Sonia and Dan are going to have a little thing with him tomorrow at the little gifty and cake at the water treatment plant. So I'm just suggesting that the board may wish to pass a motion to offer congratulations to Keith McKay.
So moved. Congratulations offered.
Absolutely, like, and I could do it via, you know, I can send him a note on behalf of the board, right? I'll
That
send
would be
it.
great.
Yeah, we'll make the motion here formally. So it's in the public record, but the motion will be that I will acknowledge him through a note on behalf of the board. So moved. Second.
Oh, second.
Yeah.
Oh,
All in favor?
so- aye.
Aye. Okay. And
And
we
thank
had-
you, Ian, for a good AGM, for chairing the AGM. That was
it's, we've come a long ways. So,
yes.
So the last item that I just mentioned is because this is a permanent record of our meeting, and we had some profane crash, or some intrusion, this is the Zoom hack thing, right? That I've heard of but never experienced before. But I don't want to subject any landowner that wants to come here and see what happened during this meeting to what we heard. So Gary, I know we have had in the past, we've had our web team edit the video and remove content. And I think it's warranted in this case, but I think probably the board should authorize you doing that so that you're covered. So I'd move that we alter the video to remove the intrusive and profane content from non-landowners on this.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. You okay with that, Gary?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
I wouldn't know how to do it, but hopefully the web team will.
exactly. Okay, so that is the end of the agenda.
Landowner
I guess-
questions, Mr.
Oh,
Chairman?
there is landowner questions. We do not have any on the call.
We scared
so-
them all away.
Well, I don't believe any of those, Carlos, Max, or Arthur, were landowners.
No.
So
Okay.
let us then move to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good meeting, people.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Oh, and it's the conversion meeting tomorrow,
1
Yes,
o'clock.
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. All right. Thank you.
All right. See you there.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.